Warning, this podcast contains violence, sexuality, gore, and other horrible and disturbing things. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the hosts of this venture are ignorant dipshits, so please do not take anything they say as fact. And enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
The atoms in your left hand probably came from a different star than your right hand.
It is our basic human right to be fucked up.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Occultae Veritatis.
It's my turn now.
Okay.
All right, so 1633, June 22nd, Galileo Galilei was forced to recant his views that the Earth orbits the Sun by the Pope, a fact the Vatican would only admit was wrong in 1992.
Yeah. And you know what they did to him? They put him under house arrest for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
For the idea that
they locked him up in his house with all his telescopes.
Yeah, it was insane.
Could you imagine what he could have completed? Halfway through his life, he just got locked up. Fucking hell.
And they only were like, sorry, my bad, in 1992.
After building a better telescope, Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei found evidence to support Nicholas Copernicus's theory that the Earth isn't the center of the universe. Galileo had observed 4 objects moving around Jupiter. He suggested that if these moons revolved around Jupiter and not the Earth, then the Earth couldn't be the center of the universe. The Church wanted Galileo to withdraw his scientific statements because they went against its teachings. The Church had long stated that the Earth was the center of the universe and everything revolved around it. The Church decreed that it would not tolerate such thinking. Only the clergy could interpret the Bible. It wasn't long before the Catholic Church had Galileo arrested and charged with heresy. During his trial in 1632, Galileo was 68 years old and in poor health. He worried what his fate would be if he continued to argue with the Church. Galileo remembered that in 1600, church authorities burned Giordano Bruno at the stake for declaring the Earth was not the center of the universe. Galileo conceded to the Church's request and announced that he was wrong in his beliefs. The Church spared his life and instead gave Galileo permanent house arrest as punishment. He stayed under house arrest until his death in 1642. In 1992, the Catholic Church reversed the charges against Galileo.
I was 5 years old in 1992. Like that's wild.
I was in grade 2. It was the year before Jean Chrétien became the Prime Minister of Canada.
Right. Yes.
I was 2 in 92. It's nice I was born in 1990 because when I become senile, I can just add 10 plus 10 to my age and figure out how old I am, or plus 10 to the year and figure out how old I am.
I was born in 1987. I am 32 years old.
You're 10 years older than me.
Fantastic.
You're 17? No,
I am 32.
Oh, 32. Sorry, you're 22. My math is terrible.
All right, shot. 1935. I skipped 1635. I skipped 1634 apparently because nothing cool happened then.
Nothing.
On February 10th, the Académie Française formed by Cardinal Richelieu in Paris. And then, on May 19th, Cardinal Richelieu, who was France's first minister, declares war on Spain, which was the Franco-Spanish War, 1635 to 1659. All right, 1636. On October 28th, Harvard University was founded. It's been around for a while.
Yeah.
That's old.
Did you know, Mr. Sage Murray, that you're getting a vasectomy?
Yep.
We just heard it. You're getting snipped, buddy.
We discussed it. Sorry, the podcast this side.
But Mr. Sage Murray, we will hold for you a grand vasecto party.
Oh, a vasecto party!
The night before your procedure, we'll get you really fucking drunk, and we're going to have a wonderful time.
I will want to be there.
Okay, yes.
I'm going to cover myself in milk and skid around on the floor like a giant sperm.
On February 15th, Ferdinand III succeeds Ferdinand II as the Holy Roman Emperor. Fun fact. On May 3rd, Cardinal Richelieu, who apparently I was really into when I wrote this, allegedly creates the table knife.
Oh my.
Yes.
So I'll be able to butter my butter.
Yes.
Excellent. I love that. I don't like smearing butter on bread with my bare hands.
Okay, well, yes, that would be also bad. Okay, and then on May 26th...
I like smearing butter with my bare hands.
But it's
That's
so
disgusting.
It's so like
I don't.
I do nothing with my bare hands.
I just nail the bread to the wall and just throw a hunk of butter on it and hope for the best. Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. So, and then on May 26th, the Mystic Massacre, which in the first battle of the Pequot War in Connecticut, around 500 Pequot Native Americans are killed by colonial forces. So not cool.
Yeah.
Fuck colonialism.
Oh, yes.
All right, next shot. 1638. All right, so the first earthquake recorded in the U.S. was at Plymouth, Massachusetts. So 1639, November 24th, the first obstruction of the transit of Venus. Oh, my God. First observation. I'm so sorry, Leon. He's just...
I'm not even reading your notes, and I know your notes.
Oh, boy. Okay. The first observation of the transit of Venus was by Jeremiah Horrocks and William Crabtree. This helped establish the size of the solar system, which is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah. I believe the transit of Venus was Venus traipsing across the surface of the sun, if I'm not mistaken. And it helps determine how far away the sun is in comparison to how far away Venus is, because you can do some fancy math with that.
It's like an eclipse, but instead of the moon, it's Venus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little point in front of the sun instead of like most of the sun being obstructed. Yeah.
A Veneclipse.
Once upon a time, I was falling in love.
Now
I'm only falling apart. Nothing I can do. A total eclipse of Venus.
I like that.
I know that whole song, and I would karaoke it at any point. Anyone, anywhere, just
Fuck, we'll record
me.
the album once we relocate the studio back to your basement.
Back to my basement.
You and I will record our fucking album.
Yes, came in. All right, so 1640. On August 28th, the English King Charles I's army loses to a Scottish conventor at the Battle of Newburn during the Second Bishops' War. So then, and also in August 29th, King Charles I signs a peace treaty with Scotland.
Woo!
Woo!
Not to last very long.
No. Okay, there's a lot of stuff with Charles I that happens in my chunk. So in 1641, August 23rd, outbreak of the Irish Rebellion of 1641, the Catholic uprising in Ulster.
First of many rebellions, including today, there's still shouts of rebellion and revolution in Ireland. They still feel that they need their own sanctity and land, which I agree with them.
Yes.
They should.
Yes.
Leave them Scotland.
And Scotland.
Yes, and Scotland. All right, so 1642. On March 1st, Georgiana in Maine becomes the first incorporated American city, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. What do you have to do certain paperwork to make it an official city, or like?
I don't know. I didn't research that.
Is there a population limit?
I don't know.
Who knows?
So on August 13th, the Dutch astronomer Christian Huygens discovers the Martian South Polar Cap.
Oh,
good for him.
That's actually you need a fair bit of resolution in a lens to find that. You would think.
Yeah, pretty cool. And then on August 22nd, the English Civil War begins between royalists and parliamentarianisms. Parliamentarianists. And then, on November 24th, a Dutch explorer named Abel Tasman discovers, I put in quotation marks because obviously it was already there, discovers Tasmania.
Well, yeah.
1642 was a big year.
Devil.
Yes. 1642 is a big year. All right, so 1643. On January 23rd, Sir Thomas Fairfax takes leads for the parliamentarians in the English Civil War. Then next, on May 13th, there was the Battle of Grantham, and the parliamentarians beat the royalists. And then on May 13th, there was a huge earthquake in Santiago, Chile, that kills 1/3 of the population. Glad that you're fucking finally here. Sit down.
An earthquake that kills 1/3 of the population.
1/3 of the population.
So So flooding, landslides, like buildings falling on people, I guess breaking up of food distribution, maybe they couldn't get access to food and water. Christ, that's a lot of people to die, a third of the population.
A third of the population.
Christ.
It's insane. And then on May 14th, Louis the 15th, XIV, 15th, right?
Yes, it is.
Becomes the King of France.
No, it's not. It's 14.
14? XIV.
Yeah, 14.
Okay, 14. Louis the 14th becomes the King of France at the ripe old age of 4.
Aw.
Which is younger than my son.
Yeah, and that's why sometimes the monarchy is stupid, because you have a 4-year-old. Like, I'm fine when it's toothless and it doesn't have any like actual power, and it's a representative thing. But a 4-year-old doing political stuff, I don't know.
My kid had his first tooth when he was 4 months old.
Oh, really?
That's early.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay. And then in 1644, on March 19th, which is the day before my birthday, 200 members of the Peking imperial family commit suicide in loyalty to the emperor.
How many?
200.
Christ.
Yeah, it's a lot of people that died.
Man.
And then...
Speaking of cults.
Yeah, right? On November 23rd, a pamphlet by John Milton called, I cannot pronounce this, I practiced it like 1,000 times, Areopagitoa is published. This is basically the OG freedom of speech and expression publication. This is at the height of the English Civil War, and Milton was super against censorship. So a quote from this pamphlet is actually displayed over the entrance of the main reading room of the New York Public Library. And I will quote it verbatim now.
Sweet.
A good book is the precious lifeblood of a master spirit, embalmed and treasured up on purpose to a life beyond life. So he was really into non-censorship, and that was like the first one.
I mean, look at what Disney's done with like censorship and like with copyright and stuff like that. I
Right?
mean, Christ, like, and especially with like modern journalism, like the power to silence with copyrights. There's a lot of stuff around that.
All right, so 1645. On June 14th, during the Battle of Naseby in Lancashire, the New Model Army under Oliver Cromwell, Thomas Fairfax, beat the royal forces of King Charles I. Woo!
Good old Cromwell.
Yeah, Oliver Cromwell. Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that all these wars that we're kind of just mentioning in passing, like, each one of them had like hundreds of thousands of people dying, like families being eliminated, like lineages being
decimated, and it's literally like 4 lines in my book.
Yeah, we are a violent species.
Yeah. So 1646, on February 16th, the last major battle of the English Civil War, the Battle of Great Torrington in Devon, takes place. So on April 27th, King Charles flees Oxford. On May 5th, King Charles surrenders in Scotland.
Didn't get too far, I guess.
On November 4th, Massachusetts uses the death penalty for denying the Holy Bible is God's word.
Oh, boy.
Fantastic. All right, so 1647. January 30th, after 9 months of the negotiations, Scottish Presbyterians sell the captured Charles I to the English Parliament for around 100,000 pounds.
Which is a large amount in the 1600s. Christ.
Yeah, it's a lot. So then in May 26th, Alice Young becomes the first person executed as a witch in the American colonies. She was hanged in Hartford, Connecticut.
Boo.
Yes. So that was pretty close to like, it didn't take very long for that witch hatred to travel from Europe to the Americans.
Yeah. Yeah, and to this day, like, witches are seen as like a symbol of Satanism, and they're persecuted for it. And there hasn't been many like formalized witch genocides in modern times, but like Christ, it was dark for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a few hundred years.
All right, I skipped a few years. We're at 1649. The English Parliament votes to put Charles I on trial for treason and other high crimes, in quotation marks. All right. 1651, July 24th. Anthony Johnson, a free African American, receives a grant of 250 acres in Virginia. Good for him. 1652, May 18th. Rhode Island enacts the first laws declaring that slavery is illegal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so like that's good.
Oh, man, they're taking a stance early. I kind of like that.
Yeah. 1653, on February 2nd, New Amsterdam, which was later renamed New York, becomes a city.
Even old New York was once New Amsterdam.
That's right. Yep.
This is not New York, no, this is Amsterdam. And without Amsterdam, there would be no New York. But I want to show you something. Come on. This is the West Indies Pakhuis, the West Indian warehouse, I guess that would be in English. And there's an intimate connection between this building and New York. This is the location where all the goods coming from New Amsterdam would be stored 400 years ago. So beaver pelts, or whatever else. It was mostly beaver pelts that would store here. I'm not sure if it was ever really full. The West Indian Company never really made a profit. So it's a gorgeous building, and that's why tourists from all over the world come here to enjoy historic buildings like this. But there's also the general misconception that America doesn't have any buildings that are as old as this one. And that's simply just not true. Because there's a building in New York that's basically just as old as this one. And I went there together with architecture historian Helene Westerhuis. And yes, that is the oldest building in New York. This is the house called the Wyckoff Farm. Most of what you see is newer, but the oldest part of this house is from about 1652, which makes it only 10 years younger than the West India Pakhuis.
And then on December 16th, the parliamentarian Oliver Cromwell is appointed as Lord Protector of England, Scotland, and Ireland.
That sounds like... All these titles sound like D&D games. Lord Protector.
Right? It's insane.
Yeah.
So 1654, on April 26th, Jews are expelled from Brazil. They apparently hated Brazils.
Brazil?
Yeah. They hated Jews in Brazil.
Christ.
1655.
They never get a break, do they?
Nope.
There's lots of anti-Semitism still happening in Brazil.
It's insane. It's
to this day, like a ton.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they do have fascist tendencies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in 1655, on March 25th, Christian Huygens, the same dude from before, discovers Titan, Saturn's largest satellite.
Fuck yeah.
The end! So I decided to end on a high note.
There we go.
Yay, Saturn's largest satellite.
All right, so, the year was 1666.
Oh, I wish I was in Sherbrooke now. When a letter of marque came from the king to the scummiest vessel I'd ever seen. God damn them all. I was told we'd cruise the seas for American gold. We'd fire no guns, shed no tears. 'Cause I'm a broken man on a Halifax pier, the last to bear its privateers.
I need to learn the words to that song.
Sunday, September 2nd, 1666.
Oh, Sid Barrett cried the town.
What happened?
Boy,
What happened?
Was I supposed to do to 1666?
Huh?
Yes?
No, I thought I was supposed to do 1655. I had it in in notes on my phone so I wouldn't fuck it up.
No, you're supposed to do a third.
God damn
it was
it.
a third of the year, but okay.
Well,
it's my turn now.
Fuck 1655.
A lot of
to
nothing
66.
happened for a decade.
My bad.
And so, I guess 1666 is perhaps the year of the beast if you ignore the one in front of the year.
I always do.
Thomas Ferrinor on Pudding Lane in London, just after midnight, has a fire in his home. Okay, so the dude's a baker, so maybe that had something to do with the fire. I don't know. I really didn't look it up. But the mayor of London really doesn't know what the fuck to do.
That Boris Johnson's an idiot.
And so he doesn't know what the hell to do. So by the time he decides to do and start responding to the fire, the traditional firefighting methods of the time were rendered useless because the fire was just too fucking big. And then it burns down 1.76 square kilometers of London, including 13,200 houses, out of 87 churches out of 109 churches. Basically, over the course of 3 days, all just get leveled through this fire, and then it is known as the Great Fire of London. next shot. Who's doing the next one?
Right here.
Yep.
Right there. Okay. So, 1667, Isaac Newton has investigated and written his works in subjects of optics, acoustics, infinitesimal calculus, mechanism, and thermodynamics. The researchers themselves, I guess all the research that he had done will only be published years later. 1668, it's a leap year. It's also the years 1046 and 1047 in the Iranian calendar and the year 4001 in the Korean calendar. But in July of 1668, Welsh privateer Henry Morgan sacks Portobello and Panama City due to a lack of, results, pirate booty, whatever, from the latter attack. Basically, it leads to the city getting burned down. What a dick. 1669.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's the sex number.
I actually have it in my notes. I say nice. See? It says nice.
I guess, yes, it's there.
Yeah, very good.
Samuel Pepys, an administrator for the English Navy and member of Parliament who's known for keeping a diary, stops writing in his diary. I give him credit because it was 2002 by the time I stopped writing in my live journal.
Oh, boy.
I still keep a diary to this day.
But you don't have a live journal.
No.
I've seen your
It's okay. George R. R. Martin is still going on LiveJournal, and that's how I know The Winds of Winter is never going to be finished.
Oh no.
Okay, so
all I want is that book.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for so long.
Yeah. May 2nd, 1670, the Hudson's Bay Company is founded and operates in Canada. Basically, they had a monopoly on the Canadian fur trade.
Yep.
The company eventually diversifies, and they still exist to this day.
They do.
They went into oil and gas operations as well in the basically from 1920s to the 1980s. Today, it's just like any other department store, kind of mostly closed. But
Colonizers.
It sells, cosmetics, electronics, appliances, shit like that. It's kind of like, the former Sears, but
I used to work
Canadian.
at Sears.
I
worked there for a while.
Can I read 1671?
I'm so sorry.
Okay, I don't know what's going on here.
Okay, 1671. On June, and I've never read this, June 22nd, the Ottoman Empire declares war on Poland. Meanwhile, on the invitation of Frederick Wilhelm, Elector of Brandenburg, the first Jewish families settle in Berlin.
Ooh.
February 19th, Tokugawa Yorinobu, a Japanese nobleman, dies. In December, the first Seventh-day Baptist Church in America is founded at Newport, Rhode Island. I think these four events were all unrelated, or they are.
Or are they?
Or are they?
You had a
right,
perfect right until the end.
Cue dramatic gopher sound.
Or are they?
Sorry, dramatic period.
But that's
My
all
dog
right.
literally makes that face.
In 1672, so like a year later, the Treaty of Buchnak between the Ottoman Empire and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth is signed, ending the first phase of the Polish-Ottoman War.
So cool.
Yeah, 1673 on June 17th.
Tens of people died in that war.
Man, ooh, I don't know what people have against putting your feet up on something. Gross.
Oh, jeez.
Jeez.
Fucking love an Ottoman.
Get it? Ha ha ha.
Ha 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 ha.
See, there's a country that's named after a thing that we have around today. Ha.
That took me a while to get.
That's okay. We still love you.
So June 17th of 73, French explorer Father Jacques Marquette and Louis Joulet reach the beginning of the Mississippi River and head into what will become Arkansas. July 24th, Edmund Halley enters the Queen's College in Oxford and as an undergraduate. The dude would later throw down some mad math and compute the next time a comet would appear. Cool. And after guessing right, the comet was named after him upon his predicted return in 1758, which he did not live to see, thus Halley's Comet.
Okay, well, in my next episode, it's all about the Halley-Bob Comet. Well, not all about it.
But that's not the same. That's,
well, I know.
That's a different comet.
I know. Okay, whatever.
That's a different comet.
Whatever.
Just saying.
It's still a comet. Get off my dick.
Yeah. It's a ball of ice flying.
Yeah, it's a ball of ice
It's a dirty snowball.
Yeah. Fuck you guys.
1674, in March, Jethro Tull, the English agriculturalist,
I fucking love
not
Jethro
the
Tull
rock
band.
band from Blackpool.
Oh, I love
is
Jethro Tull
born.
so much.
He came up with a number of things that lead to what we do today in modern agriculture, such as the horse-drawn hoe. Just waiting.
You're a horse-drawn hoe.
Okay, horse-drawn hoe is the name of my next sex
You see,
tape.
pole starts had a lot more resistance back then.
Jesus.
Sorry, not sorry.
Sprout is my horse-drawn hoe.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, that's good.
Perfected the horse-drawn seed drill, and he also bestowed upon farmers the importance of hoeing. And I literally have in here, Sage, any comments?
Yes, so many comments. Okay.
Go. Get it done. Get it out.
Horse-drawn hoe, name of my sex tape. Horse-drawn seed drill, that's the name of my, gross, dirty punk band like Gigi
That's
Allen.
the name of my dick.
Okay, and that's the name of Sprout's dick. And I love Jethro Tull, like the regular band that plays the flute.
If Groot was a sex performer, when he comes, it would be a seed drill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
all right. Or like a weird
and
Pokemon
everyone
niche.
knows that I'm a plant.
I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. That's just how it is.
and seed drill also sounds like the name of a Pokemon attack.
Pikachu, seed drill.
No,
Pikachu's an electric type.
Yeah, so
no
Bulbasaur.
There you
use
go.
seed drill.
Like,
There
get
we
the
go.
fuck out of here.
I have
Seed drill on Pikachu.
I've seen stuff on the internet that resembles that. Pokemon has Rule 34 in the bag.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we watched Pokemon porn. Call back to that weird porn episode that we watched.
1675, recurring OV pod guest host Dan West is born.
Dan West. He gave me his dick pencil.
He adopted me. He spent thousands of dollars to adopt me as an adult.
That's adorable.
I was 27 years old and he became my new dad.
Sage, can you adopt me?
I changed my birth
can you
certificate
be my grandma,
so his
though?
name was on it.
I don't know if I'm 32.
Yeah, so.
Okay, I'll be your grandma.
Okay.
Do you know what it means when someone adopts you as an adult? It means they will spend thousands of dollars because they love you.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, okay, and Dan West is like one of my favorite humans. Like
He's
in the
the
whole
shit,
entire
yeah.
world. He's amazing.
Anyway, in 1675, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz uses a long S symbol to mean integral in calculus.
Boring.
Becomes part of the nerdiest controversy. Controversy. Ever about who really created the calculus, Newton or Leibniz. Remember the integral to sec y dy from 0 to 1/6 of pi is
I hate
log
this whole
to the base of e of the square root of 3 times the 64th power of I.
Negative
That sounded like rabble.
X equals negative b plus or minus root b squared minus 4ac over 2a.
No, you gotta sing it. You gotta
X
sing
equals negative b plus or minus root squared b minus 4ac all over 2a.
No,
my math teacher played that like one whole class, like for a whole hour. He played that song.
Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac.
I think I'm going home.
1676, January 29th, Fyodor III becomes Tsar of Russia. March 29th, Providence, Rhode Island is attacked and destroyed by Native Americans.
9 days after my birthday.
Fucking colonialism.
Colonialism.
Emperor Johannes I of Ethiopia decrees that Muslims must live separately from Christians throughout his realm.
Boo.
Anton van Leeuwenhoek discovers microorganisms in Furiosa, protists, and eventually sperm, cellular structures, and some larger bacteria. It will be like 150 years before we actually understand that these organisms lead to food spoilage and disease. And to this day, we still don't have universal acceptance of germ theory.
No.
Vaccinate your fucking kids.
Can I read the next one?
Okay.
Okay, 1677, July 14th, Sweden defeats the Danes in the Battle of Landskrona, forcing Danes to eat lutefisk. Okay, I made that last part up. The Danes have been eating it since at least the 1500s. Ice cream becomes popular in Paris, and the population of Paris first exceeds 500,000 people. The Canadian enumeration of Canada's Indigenous peoples in 1677 is summarized. Quote, Macades, or the Mohawk, 5 villages, 96 lodges, 300 warriors. Oneids, or the Oneidas, 1 village, 100 lodges, 200 warriors. The Onagados, 2 villages, 164 lodges, 350 warriors. The Cagus, or Cagus, 3 villages, 100 lodges, 300 warriors. The Senequat, or Senecas, 4 villages, 324 lodges, 1,000 warriors. In all, 2,150 warriors, or about 10,750 souls, down from the 1665 enumeration done by the Jesuit missionaries. Holy fuck, I made it through that.
Sounds like colonialism. Also, yay, Leah.
Yeah, like, it's going to become more and more of a theme as we start to get, like, when we get to 200 and 300 and start to, like, talk through the centuries, there's going to be colonialism fucking everywhere.
Colonialism fucking everywhere.
1678.
I'm drunk. I'm sorry.
This is our ash cap.
Ash cap.
Wu Sangui proclaims himself emperor of the Great Cao Dynasty after conquering Hunan. September 6th, Titus Oates begins to present allegations of a popish plot, supposed Roman Catholic conspiracy to assassinate King Charles II of England.
Ooh,
Oates,
that was after King Charles I, which was in my tongue.
Oates applies the term Tory to those who disbelieve his allegations. Maybe it's short for suppository. The Tory mindset was basically God, Queen, and country. Meanwhile, his brother John meets with Daryl Hall and forms Hall & Oates. Okay, I just made that last one up.
Obviously.
You're a rich girl and you've gone too far, but it doesn't really matter anyway. She's a man-eater.
You can rely on the old man's money. You can rely on your old man's money. You're a bitch, girl, and it's gone too far, but you know it don't matter anyway.
See, I have sing rich girl in here because I knew it was going to happen.
Get your money, money won't get you too far, get you too far. I know that whole song. I could sing it all.
November 27th, 1679, a fire in Boston, Massachusetts burns down all of the warehouses, 80 houses, all of the ships in the dockyards, and also some Dennis Papin guy invents the pressure cooker.
That is a lot.
Yeah. 1680, January 2nd, King Amankarat II of Mataram personally stabs Truanava, who had led a failed rebellion against Mataram during a ceremonial visit.
I bet that was a pain in the back, huh?
Oh, I bet it was. The Trunayaha rebellion is remembered with pride and a heroic struggle of the Madurese people against foreign forces of the Mataramish state and the Dutch VOC. Today, his career is commemorated as the name of an airport in Sumandeep and Trunojoyo University in Bangalan, Madura. November 17th.
We're so white.
Yeah, I don't know how to say it.
Fuck, we're white, you guys.
November 17th, Whigs organize processions to burn effigies of the Pope in London.
Okay, shot taken.
Okay, so 1682. I skipped a few years because really nothing happened. So August 25th in 1682, following the Bideford witch trial, 3 women become the last known to be hanged for witchcraft in England at Exeter.
What was that, 1682?
1682, they stopped hanging women for witchcraft in England.
That's insane.
Yeah, 1683, wild boars are hunted to extinction in Britain. Flawless victory. Fatality.
Yeah. We have a slight boar problem up in Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Actually, somebody that I went to high school with is making a good bit of side money running an app about boar sightings.
Not to be confused with feral hogs. So 1684, January 26th, Marcantio Guistantanian is elected the Doge of Venice. So Venice, much wow.
So Venice, much wow. Some sort of Venice word of Venice.
Doge. It's D-O-G-E, Doge.
Like Doge?
Of Venice.
Doge.
Doce? Maybe it's Doce or something
Dude,
like that.
My lips were about to form, so wow, and then you said it. That was haunting.
So wow, so Venice.
Such canals.
Oh. Louis XIV, so that would be the 14th. Louis
He was in my chunk.
Yes.
When
Is
he was
married
4.
to Madame de Maintenon in a secret ceremony.
Ooh.
In 86, on May 4th, the municipality of Ilagan is founded in the Philippines. In Greece, the Ottoman occupied Morea, i.e. the Peloponnese, falls to the Venetians. A hurricane saves Charleston, South Carolina from attack by the Spanish vessels because of a little wind.
Go Hurricanes!
Yeah, just a little bit of wind, and they lost because they had I think they had the tactical advantage. No, never mind. That's something else. So in 1687, some colonialism, doesn't matter who or against who. It's just the way it was. You name it, it probably happened. 1688, on May 17th, the arrest of King Narai of Occultae launches a coup d'etat. The death of the king and some other guy proclaimed himself king. Siamese troops attacked the French troops during the siege of Bangkok. Finally, the French soldiers were allowed to return to France. Only the Dutch were allowed to trade with the capital before the French and English finally ended their dispute with Siam.
Jeez Louise.
Yes, it's just a whole bunch of stuff going on here. 1689, on May 11th, Williamite War in Ireland, Battle of Bantry Bay, the French fleet under Marquis de Chateauneuf. How do I say that?
It was awful.
Chateauneuf.
I hate it.
Chateauneuf. Is able to protect its transports, unloading supplies for James II from the English Royal Navy under Earl of Torrington, and they basically withdraw unpursued. In fairness, Chateauneuf has the advantage because they were upwind, so they could maneuver better over, on the water. This battle, which in total lasted 4 hours, when the French broke off their action late in the afternoon in order to return to anchorage, English ships were too damaged to follow and
break off the action and too damaged to follow are the names of your sex tapes.
Yes, too damaged to follow.
Yep.
And so he suffered many casualties. So the war victor was somewhat inconclusive, but the French protected the transports, which I guess they managed to unload into port. So I guess technically they won, I suppose.
I guess.
That's a great victory, because wars of attrition are often the most horrible, because all your citizens are starving to death and your soldiers are starving to death while you're trying to fight off an army that's coming at you. So if you cut off your food supply, it's extra fucked.
Exactly.
Everything is just.
I did not mean to laugh very inappropriately there.
1690, the clarinet was invented in Germany.
Fuck yeah, clarinet.
In December, the planet Uranus is first sighted and recorded by John Flamsteed.
Fun fact about the clarinet. Mrs. Leon Filger won a band trophy for playing a clarinet solo.
Really?
She looks like a clarinet player.
She does, yeah. If my dick looks like a clarinet.
I just learned a new stereotype. Just right.
But I've also seen your dick and it doesn't really look like a clarinet.
It's far more attractive than
Imagine
a clarinet.
putting a reed in that.
Okay, question now.
Okay.
Question.
Sounding?
If you put, and I'm going to say an oboe reed, because I don't think a clarinet reed would fit under one's foreskin easily, but if one were to put an oboe reed in one's penile meatus and ejaculate forcefully, could one produce a tone? I'm willing to find out.
Please do it.
Someone find me an oboe reed.
Oboe reeds are double reeds.
They are double reeded.
I know where
I'm double seated.
I know where we can rent instruments, but is that ethical?
Yes, it is. It's my dick. It's ethical.
I believe you can just buy like a reed for
you
not
can
too
totally
much
just
money
buy-
because
Okay.
you
Is
need to
mayonnaise
replace
an
reeds
instrument?
all the
Is there
fucking
budget in the
time.
podcast for me to get a dick reed?
Yes. As keeper of the money,
Yes.
I will send you money to buy a dick reed.
No, you'll buy me the dick reed. I'll just play it.
Okay. Well,
all you need to do, I'm sure you could go to like one of the music stores.
Long and McQuaid.
That one.
Buy a dick reed.
I mean, like, why do you need to buy this? Or they'll ask, like, what type of oboe do
Could
you
we just
have?
rent one? It's a
because
little
you
bit
know
cheaper.
that's going to be the question, because there are
Oh
going to
my
be different oboe reeds. What type of oboe reed would you like? Do
I
you
don't
want
know,
like
it's-
hard, medium, or soft? Will be the question.
It's
and you
for my
say,
friend's
rated.
dick.
we're
right?
going to
Like-
ejaculate through the reed and see what happens.
Yeah, and then you say when
they'll
they
be like,
when they
okay, take
question
the
you,
hard
just
one.
say, "Am I under arrest or am I free to go? Like, give me my reed."
Get off my dick.
Yeah.
Also in December of 1690, the planet Uranus is first sighted and recorded by John Flamsteed, who mistakenly catalogs it as star 34 Tauri. What a dumbass.
What a dumbass. Such a loser that guy was. Doesn't even know his fucking planets.
Yeah.
He only discovered a fucking planet, called it a star. What an idiot. 1691, the Treaty of Limerick is signed. It would appear a man from Nantucket was not involved. It guaranteed the civil rights.
He had a dick so long he could suck it. I know so many limericks, you guys.
It guaranteed civil rights to Roman Catholics.
Let me do a limerick episode. I will just recite limerick.
I'm game. Sure.
Okay, that's a Patreon episode.
All right, put that on the list.
That's my turn on.
Okay, well, you and me need to do it together.
1692, or the year 1099 of the Bengali calendar, the Salem witch trials begin in Massachusetts. I would note that England stopped that shit 10 years earlier.
America's always fucking late.
America.
Fuck yeah.
1693, John Locke publishes in his influential book Some Thoughts Concerning Education. In it, Locke was arguing against both the Augustinian view of man, in which grounds its conception of humanity in the original sin, as well as the Cartesian position, which holds that man innately knows basic logical propositions by stating that men were determined, quote, 9 pints of 10 are what they are, good or evil, useful or not, by their education. In other writings, Locke will also write about labor theory of value, suggesting that labor adds value to resources, something Karl Marx would later push 2 centuries later.
Can I do 1694?
Okay.
Nothing worth talking about happened.
There you go. That was literally what it says. 1695, Russia declares war on the Ottoman Empire. Couch Empire on high alert.
Oh, no.
Can I do the next 3?
Hold on. Also, the £2 fine is imposed for swearing in England. That fucking sucked. Do the next.
Sorry,
bloody hell.
Son of a bitch.
1696, January the 29th. Peter the Great becomes sole Tsar of Russia upon the death of Tsar Ivan V. Tonight on Dancing with the Tsars, spelled Tzars, instead of CZARS, I don't understand why, are the Tsars Peter and Catherine were great, but Ivan was terrible. 1697, January 8th, Scottish student Thomas Aikenhead is hanged outside Edinburgh, becoming the last person in Great Britain to be executed for blasphemy. Fun fact, blasphemous libel is still a crime in Canada under Section 296 of the Criminal Code and could be subject to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years.
Yeah. If a prosecutor was
that's a
bored or motivated enough.
I want to get arrested for that. Let's try.
Right? Okay, well, Center for Inquiry Canada is trying to get that
What was the first guy's name again? The guy
Aikenhead.
Thomas Aikenhead.
Aikenhead. Yeah, that was an ache in my head. That's what I was trying to say. I forgot his last name.
1698, Thomas Savery invents the steam. You said invests, but I assume you meant invents. Invents the steam pump.
So
Meanwhile, in Russia, Peter the Great imposes a tax on beards for all men except priests. So every man in the room is paying a tax.
Also, my husband.
Your husband's paying a hell of a tax.
Yeah,
he has
he's
an
got a
epic
good
beard.
beard. Yeah.
There are like birds and shit hiding in there.
Yep.
Peasants.
Yes. Meanwhile, in Russia, Peter the Great imposes a tax on beards for all men except priests. Peasants are required to pay a tax dependent upon one's status. Take the hipsters.
Take that, hipsters. That's the inflection you should have had.
Take that, hipsters.
There you go.
That was almost funny.
I hated hipsters before it was cool. Ha.
1698, Thomas Savery invests the...
you already read that one.
1699, pirate Captain Kidd is arrested and imprisoned in Boston. Must surrender his MP3s to the RIAA. On June 14th, Thomas Savery demonstrates his first steam pump to the Royal Society in London. It will be a full 3 years before his penis pump is demonstrated.
Fun fact about
that last
pirates.
one up. And so that's our fucked up history as a species on this pale blue dot suspended in orbit around a rather unremarkable star.
Yeah.
Yay! 100 years.
Yeah, so that was the 1600s, and when we get to episode 200, we'll do another century, so think hard.
Should do like 300, and be like, this is Sparta.
Oh, yeah. If you want us to do the 20th, or if you want us to do the 13th, or hell, if you want us to do the first year and cover the birth of Jesus, or lack thereof, then sure, yeah, we can do that too.
Woohoo!
Okay.
So,
from Occultae Veritatis, I've been Ood Gallifrey.
Sage Mary.
Leon Filger,
and Richard Bigley.
And in
That
with
felt,
us.
That felt really right.
Yeah.
I really liked hearing that, and I've been Sprout.
Yeah.
And I came in late, but I'm squishy.
They probably all smell like weed.
Yeah. It's always a welcoming sense.
They probably all smell like weed is the name of your sex tape.
Oh my gosh! And it's gonna be like an orgy sex tape.
Yep.
I'm
100%.
so down for that.
I thought you might.
If anyone wants to join me in this,
That's when you spill the bong water, but you just keep going.
All right, so intermission.
Okay, bye. Love you, bye.
Bye. Bye.
Wow. The only way to end out the 1600s is with something from the 1600s. This is Antonio Lucio Vivaldi Concerto Storm, a section from his full work, The Four Seasons. Enjoy the angry violin. At the end of the day, one of the things that helps keep this show running is our patrons. It's helped us keep going to reach this 100K level. We're able to buy equipment, dedicate time to it, buy beer, pay for programs such as our hosting and our social media tools. Our Patreons provide all that stuff, and it's all through their generosity. So this show is just as much theirs as it ours, so I'm going to read out all of our patrons for 100 Part B. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Justine. Thank you, Jillian. Thank you, Jesse with an I. Thank you, Kerchu the Lightning Wizard McQueen. Thank you, Doug King. Thank you, James Noble. Thank you, Susie Q. Thank you, Siren Petal. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Marina. Thank you, Camille. Thank you, Rissy. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Nicoletta. Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sydney. Thank you, Syrian. Thank you, Alexander. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you, Kenneth. Thank you, Papa Bray. Thank you, Rex Havoc. Thank you, Richard Bigley. Thank you, Kim Horan. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Kirbymon. Thank you, Viking Bitch. Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Tybold. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Sammy. Thank you, Corey. Thank you, EVN Adelaide. Thank you, LDR. Thank you, Carly. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Kennedy. Thank you, Emmy. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Mariah. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Basil. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Lexi. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jaizenadai. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Swindled Podcast. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Kayla. Thank you, Anastasia. Thank you, Rosie. Thank you, The Righteous C. Thank you, Cockwaffles. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you, Corrupted Mask. Thank you, Karen Duffy. Thank you, Dark Poutine Podcast. Thank you, Charlene. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Jana. Thank you, Kaylin. Thank you, Janine. Thank you, Braden. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Orla. If you would like to join our cult, Hail Val with us in the Discord, only for patrons. Get your episodes a week early. Decide the future of the show by voting on what episodes we research and cover next, and lots of other secret plans. Just hit us up. Patreon.com/OVPod. For as little as $1 a month, you too can hail Val. From Occultae Veritatis, 100 down, 900 to go. Maybe we'll go past 1,000. Get into the quadruples. That would be stellar. Bye-bye.